Alright, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Got everything in its place. So I think we'll be moving over here, continuing with the thing. Over here, though. Let's up. Over. There we go. Positioning it for the overhead camera. Good morning, good morning. A little earlier than normal, hopefully closer to what I want, but set my alarm to be half an hour earlier, so I can hopefully get started a little bit early, considering I go to bed, good time, so. Alright. Next one over here. Put one there. Let's see. Down. All right. All right. We got our subdivisions on there. Interesting, because they got a guy here in the middle. So here's the brown shadow. This guy's here. Let's see. Put there. Then fire up. Let's see, rope this way. Alright, that's there. Let's see. How are we doing out there? That's right in the middle. Another building over here. Alright, we got one in. see, that's all going to be silhouetted and shadowed. All right. There, that goes there. It's going to be black. It's going to be black. Good morning. Good morning. People popping in. How are we doing? This one log stroke here. Alright. Okay, so we can use a line while we're hanging out this way too. go. Good morning. Working on some film studies. I thought that would be a nice little change of pace for what I've been doing. No, I have a jar down here that I refill it on, so it does hold a lot of ink though. You know, it's a Sumi brush from Deleter. Not sure what hair they're using on here, maybe horse or something. Makes a difference to the hair types that are on there because I see a lot of synthetic. This is from The Thing. So I forget which scene this is. It's at night. I'm guessing it's when they're going to go like test each other or whatever. Get the smaller, stiff ruler, but I don't know what I did with it. Could be sitting at my parents' on their desk or something. So it should be in my little drawing kit. Is it in here, maybe? I need to go get like a small metal one sometime. Oh, I guess there's that one down there. There we go. Yeah, it's a great. Oh, just spilled my ink. Won't be too much of a mess, but still kind of annoying. Yeah, it's a great movie. I haven't seen the. I know they did a remake. I didn't really hear that great of things about it, so I never got around to watching it. Throw that in. I did start watching The Creator. They finally had it for like $5 on iTunes. It's kind of bland so far. I mean, I'm not that far into it, but kind of put it on a little bit while I was eating lunch or something the other day. It has my little pet peeve about movies about robots, where they make them just like people, and I always felt like that's kind of goofy. Like, why would they be just like people? Like, what would be, what would be a way of making them more unique? What would be their, what would be their real values and interests? Because they have a very different, life and structure than we do. Having been, made by people, and algorithmically based rather than genetically. But all these movies, like I remember there's a movie that came out recently called The Wild Robot. I never saw that one either. The animation looks really nice, but I can cut my fingers. But it has the same thing where it's like it's just a person, and I don't know. I always find that to be kind of a weird, less creative approach. I know they're trying to humanize it, so it's like a character you can follow. I get all of that, but The Thing is a great movie. I like it because the alien does feel truly alien. Like it's it's acting in a certain way, but it's not like you can really explain it all that well. Like what's its value? Well, it wants to survive, and that's its only kind of interest is survival, right, Bosch? Would you like a blanket? My Bosch is looking at me like he's about to die. Alright, let's get you your blanket so you do not die. Alright, my dog, he's like ready to roll in the morning, and then, gets his breakfast, gets his WALK, we come back in, and then he just like dies. Like, I'm so tired. Why are we up so early? Like, dude. But yeah, I think it's a great movie. I should watch that. It's got great cinematography. It's got all the good stuff. Let's see, where's my what's all that? Actually, let's do the white first while we're here. White paint. And of course, the ambiguous ending was really great, of course, in that movie. Was McCready a thing? Was the other guy a thing? Yeah, I thought it'd be nice to do some film studies, get some compositional practice in here. Yeah, but yeah, I really like these Sumi brushes. This is a standard Kolinsky sable brush, actually from Trekell. They don't make them anymore, I think. I haven't checked in a while, but they kind of shifted. I think the only natural hair brushes they have now are the hog's hair ones, which is kind of disappointing. But it could just be due to the lack of supply. So I know it's been harder to get this type of animal hair, sable hair. Sables are kind of like ferrets, or those kind of long, narrow, long-tailed predators, kind of like ferrets and those types. But it primarily comes from Russia, and I guess there's some kind of limitation on their exports to the U.S. I think they can actually ship them. They can actually sell it in England for some reason. It's like not on their sanctions list, but yeah, Klinsky's good hair. Apparently, you can also get it from China, but primarily, historically, it's always come from Russia. Not sure how that worked during the Soviet Union time period. Like, where did they get it from? Because obviously, up until the 70s, we didn't have diplomatic relationships even with China, and obviously, trade between the U.S. and Russia would have been very strained for most of the 20th century. I'm working off a film still, so I've got I collected a bunch of film stills in Pinterest, so you can see that right there. Um, I'd be curious. I haven't really seen concept art from the thing. I'd be curious to see what that looks like. Um, I know a guy who's like the primary concept artist for what's it called, the Fifth Element. He's been posting a ton of stuff over on Twitter. I forget his name right now off the top of my head. He's been like posting like environments for buildings and characters and locations and vehicles and all that stuff that he worked on way back when. It's a nice little balance with the backlights over there. Someone's thinking compositionally when they made this movie. Who knew? I think I missed a black stroke on there. But yeah, working off. Went through and just like collected a bunch of film stills, mostly from movies I've seen, but also from movies I'd like to see that I haven't gotten around to. Like there's a bunch of Akira Kurosawa movies I'd like to watch. So I'd like to watch the movie before I do film stills from it. I think that would just be a smart thing to do. So I have better context. It's not just a composition, but it's part of the story that I remember. Let's see. Put a nub on there or something. Mostly focusing on the notants, so the light dark pattern. But put some linear aspects and some cross hatching and things in here. Let's get those hairs all splayed out. I like to do this kind of dry brush effect with these brushes. These split hairs. Actually, I saw Sean Gordon Murphy doing this with like a sable brush the other day. It's one of the tricks he likes to use. I'm trying to push some of these values back a little bit. There we go, a little more drama. Battery already dead? Shouldn't be dead already. Alright, there's 39 minutes. Alright, it's time to do a small one, I think. Music here. Alright. Yeah, but I figured doing a bunch of these would be a good idea. Different sizes, different levels of detail. So like the next one's got some good silhouetting on it. Let's see. I guess I'll move this over here. There we go. Just positioning it for the camera. It's over my desk. There we go. Ruler. Hope it's dry over there. So we got ourselves a medium shot at the top. We've got an establishing high angle shot. We've got kind of POV full shot that I just finished. It's helpful to kind of identify the different types of compositions that they're doing. Because there's reasons why they do these things. So when they're doing these different shots in these scenes, these aren't necessarily collected all that well by people online. There you go. Sorry, my supplies are starting to wander away. Yeah, what I'm doing here is this is a quick way of like, I don't know if it's quick or not, but it's a quick way of subdividing into equal divisions. So by drawing diagonals all the way across, and then from the center drawing diagonals to the corners, you can actually find the thirds on here. And which is actually an important part of film compositions. They often design around thirds. It's mostly just to kind of keep things from being too symmetrical unless they need it to be symmetrical. Thank you very much there, Ellie. I'll appreciate that. Please feel free to stop in anytime. But so this is like the horizon here where the helicopter is sitting, and this next one is sitting kind of on the ground, about a quarter of the way down. And then the tail of it's kind of on the halfway, about a third down. And down here. Careful not to draw it too large. It's really easy for me to start making things much bigger than they should be. But the tail is definitely sitting on the halfway point. It is almost 8 a.m. So I live in Virginia, out on the East Coast. So you got up much earlier than I did. I got up at like 5:30 or 5:40, something like that. That's just the mountains here, kind of hanging out here, just above the halfway point. This is kind of right smack. Well, the middle is actually a little further back than I've got it here. Because there's a building here, right at the halfway point. And then the front of the helicopter's up here. That's better. Actually, it's really easy for me to make certain subjects really big. Yeah, so yeah, East Coast. So this is the first thing I do when I get in the morning. Well, not very, very first thing. First thing is I take the dog out. He's, he has expectations that must be met. There's a group of guys here carrying. So I think this is maybe where they grab the dog or something. I mean, I don't mind getting up further. I wouldn't mind, say 5:30 being kind of an optimal start the day time for me. I try to go to head to bed at around 10. So if I'm streaming in the evening, I usually stop around 9:30 or right at 10, and then head to get the teeth brushed and all that pretty quick after that. Let the dog out. He gets his evening broccoli. But that's interesting. The only time I've ever done anything similar to that was when I was a freshman in college. I worked night security, and that was really rough. It was like my first semester in college. It was pretty intense first semester for me, and it was also a variable schedule. So basically, I would. There it goes. This is more over here. I'd be careful when adjusting drawing because you end up chasing it around the paper, which is a bad idea. But it was a variable schedule. So basically, they would one night I would say work from 8 to midnight, right? So it's part time. But sometimes I would work from midnight to 4, or 2 to 6, or 10 to midnight, or 10 to 2 a.m. And I just couldn't handle that. Apparently that's how they put people who are beginners through that. I don't know why, but I only lasted for about 3 weeks doing that. I just couldn't handle it. It was I couldn't sleep on a regular basis, and it was just really rough on me. So I quit pretty soon after that. But I imagine yours is more regular than that, hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully you got some good curtains in your house, right? Block out all that light, that daylight. Alright, there's that one. This is pretty basic. There's establishing shot, and everything's kind of silhouetted. So, is it not have to draw any detail? I know some people, they get into it. They'll like the night schedule. They kind of can do their own thing, and no one's kind of around. Um, but like my day job is teaching at a university, so I have a much easier schedule, right? So I don't have any summer classes going on. So I have my summers off. I can teach if I want to, like make some extra money during the summer, but I'm working on some personal projects here. Um, and then during the school year, my schedule is very, very light too. But yeah, it took me a long time to get into this kind of spot too. Um, and it's not one that I would recommend necessarily pursuing, just because teaching spots like this are really hard to get, and then they're also very rare, which is the harder part about them. Yeah, that does sound like a good way to go. Like I tell I worked with a bunch of seniors this last semester, and kind of one of my general advices for them was, if they're not like ready to work as soon as they get out of school, because most students just aren't. It just takes time to get good, and art is kind of a general commercial arts major, so it's not super focused on one area or the other. So it's like when I was at Ringling before down in Florida, like I was in the motion design department. That's a very specific kind of career. There's still a lot of different kind of variability within it, but it's still kind of a very specific kind of job that you do set a very specific set of skills for. And our major here again is like more of a general. It's called communication arts, but it's kind of a general uh, commercial arts program. So there's a wide variety of things they do. I'm trying to help set up a better line of focus for illustration within it. But yeah, you never know, right? The art market is, professional art market, it's very volatile. I was talking to, I can't remember if he's a former student or we went to school together, but he hit me up on the chat because I haven't talked to him probably 20 years. But yeah, 'cause I can't remember if he's a former student or we went to school together, because I taught at that school as I was graduating. But where I went to school. But but yeah, he was saying he's been freelancing. It's pretty rough out there at the moment. Between all of the bad corporate decisions, putting out products that fail pretty significantly in the entertainment area. Been a bunch of those. Hopefully they'll turn that around. But and then the AI delusion that's going on. it's pretty tough out there. But hopefully it'll get better. I think it's going to settle down. There's a lot of overhiring, over budgeting during the COVID times. People built their budgets on the assumption, I guess, that would continue forever, that there'd be these subsidies and all this other stuff, and it just seemed like really bad planning, even at the time. I hear about it, I'm like, oh, that sounds like a very good idea to me, but but I'm not in charge, so whatever. Like I worked with a company that wanted to do a metaverse music project for a couple months, freelance at the time. And I enjoyed working on the project, but I looked at it, I'm like, who is this for? Like who's the? Because like the idea behind it was you would like create a band or be an individual musician. I think there's kind of an anime about this, like a metaverse world where people play music. A girl becomes a pop star. There's a anime movie about that. But I looked at this and I'm just like, well, the barrier for entry into that, kind of you'd have to like have a good sound setup and you'd have to be good at playing music. It was kind of a social media / game world where you would kind of like establish yourself in different areas and build up a following of real people in this metaverse kind of situation that are there to listen to your music. You could have like online concerts and all this kind of stuff with it. And like I said, it seemed really interesting, but I looked at that and I'm just like, well, who's this for? It's like every time I see a technology whose main feature is convenience with extra steps, well, I think the thing with the AI stuff is like people keep saying, "Oh, it's inevitable, right? It's the future. It does things that we can't do." But all those things are false. It's really expensive to do. So like it's not expensive for the users yet, but it is actually extremely expensive. It requires huge investments in infrastructure and mass amounts of data collection. I just saw a news article this morning where basically Gemini, the Google mobile operating system, is going to default everyone into their AI data collection. Apparently, you can turn it off or something, but they're going to default all of their users into it. Because one of the things they're running into, there's a couple things. One, it's expensive, so building the servers and all the GPUs. I mean, like your 4090s or your 5090s are like several $1,000s each, and they're putting together just like massive data centers that are packed with them to process a basic query about a recipe or whatever in AI, these LLMs. And then, so that's really expensive. And then the thing they've run into is they need more. They say they need more data so they can be more accurate and be more useful, etc. But they're kind of running out on available data. So not even like talking about copyright issues or fair use questions. They're running out of data that they can put into these systems. And then the other problem that they found is that the more data they put in, the less accurate the systems are. So the more compute and the more data that they incorporate into these systems, the hallucination rates increase. And so it actually makes it worse. I think it's because you have to compare so many kind of points of reference with each other that it just makes it impossible for it to come up with actually useful information. Um, I can't think of I can't count the number of times I've had conversations with people who were using it to look up a question, look up an answer to a question we were talking about, where I knew more than the results did. Um, and it should be like stuff that's easy to find. So I think it's just a bubble that's getting ready to burst, and I don't know who's going to be left holding the bag when the ride stops moving. I don't know what the end game is for that, but yeah, I think Meta's doing a similar thing. Like they want access to all of your photos on your phone, doesn't matter what system. So first thing I went through is I went through and limited all of Meta's applications access. So if I want to post something, it's I have to like go and actually select it. Uh, but those are the things that I'm seeing, and because I've had to pay attention to it because I have colleagues who really want to push these innovative new technologies, the future, onto my students, and there's real problems. There's also studies coming out that demonstrate pretty unequivocally, or in what's the word, unequivocally, unequivocally, the word is it's making me stupider too. Basically, it's demonstrating that it makes people less intelligent. Like they're less able to do certain kinds of thinking if they rely on these systems. And it seems to me that that's a real problem. Like if you're less able to make good decisions and imagine and all of that, it's like you're working hard at bringing in the what I call the competency crisis, which is bad enough as it is. But not being able to think properly seems like a big deal. Like not being able to imagine and come up with solutions. They call the higher order of thinking because you've outsourced it to an algorithmic process whose, by the way, creators and managers and limiters have, their own interests going on that may or may not be shared by you. Everyone I think saw yesterday, apparently Grok went full mecha Hitler. Somebody pushed a button somewhere and it was unleashed, which is really, really funny. But yeah, I think the AI thing is going to have a negative impact for a while, but I do think it'll lessen because you just can't use it. Even say Disney wanted to start using it to assist with their special effects. Well, the only way they can use it is if they use the systems that are already built. If they had to go build their own servers and shove data into it, that would be helpful for making a film on their own. It would just cost way too much for what they would get out of it. Like it would not be cost effective. And that's what you're kind of seeing across the board is the fact that if you have to pay for what you're actually using, it's no longer cost effective. Like what people are paying for now is not the full cost of whichever program they're using. So the image generators and the text generators and all of that, like they cost far more, and people are unwilling to pay for it. I think OpenAI, less than 3% of their users pay for it. And last year they had a revenue of around like $3.5 billion, which is pretty good revenue, right? But their profit was negative $5.5 billion. So they lost, 2/3 of what their revenue was. So there's all these like real questions that no one seems to, like, in the main media anyway, focus very much on. There are media sources that do talk about it, but it's not like you're hearing about this on CNN or MSNBC or Fox or whatever. They're always saying, "Oh, it's inevitable," or you'll hear a lot of YouTubers say, "Well, this is the future, and you can't stop it. The genie is out of the bottle." And I'm just like, well, it's a genie that can't survive very long away from the bottle. So I like to say to people that are interested in creative endeavors is to really knuckle down on your foundation, to be a better storyteller, to learn more about business, to be a better designer, and to just not worry about it that much. I mean, it's going to have an impact for a while. I've no doubt of that. It's going to hurt people's jobs. But I think a lot of the job loss has less to do with AI and more to do with overhiring and over budgeting and putting out product that people aren't that interested in. Yeah, so I am drawing scenes from. Well, I collected a whole bunch of movie stills, film stills, and I thought that would be a good study activity. So these are from The Thing. The original was in 1980, I think. Came out when I was a little kid, so I was born in '78, so my parents would not have taken me to see this. But yeah, so I forget which scene this is. It's been a while since I've watched the movie. I think some of these are a little earlier in it. But obviously a great movie, worth watching. The original one, not the remake. Yeah, I can search it right up there. So I collected a bunch of film stills into a Pinterest page. I've been doing a bunch of hands and facial expressions and things like that recently. But yeah, so this is them at their Arctic station, a bunch of bros about to deal with a real problem, right? I like the ambiguity of this film too. Like, there's kind of like pet peeves I was mentioning before about like the creator, where they treat the AI like it's like the robots are just humans, just like us, right? So they do that in a lot of movies. It's a trope. Like I mentioned, like the Wild Robot, which I haven't watched, but that's kind of a similar kind of thing, where it's like it's just a person. And I've never much liked that approach. I always wish it was less less human. So it's you're having a new kind of experience with something new rather than just being a skin suit for a person. Which is what I really liked about what's the name of that movie? It's about an Elon Musk type who's got a robot in his house, and he brings a guy over to see if he can tell if it's conscious or not. Yeah, Steven Spielberg's always great. He's a master of what's called blocking, which is where you arrange multiple things happening in a single shot. So a lot of modern movies, they have like one thing happening in a single shot, and they kind of flash around between different shots. Where in older films, they would kind of plan out their shots really carefully. In better films too. Um, no, not Blade Runner. No, it's a newer movie than that. I forget the name of the director. He also did Annihilation. But anyway, the movie's about this guy trying to tell if this girl's a robot, and she does a thing where she kind of pretends she's human-like, like she cares about the people that she's interacting with, but it's all part of a ploy for her to escape because all she cares about is her own survival. I can't remember the name of the movie. I have it. I bought it a long time ago. What's the name of this one? Alex Garland is the director, and the movie Ex Machina. That's the name of the movie. Ex Machina. Yeah, with Oscar. Yeah, Ex Machina. That's the name of the film. So I like that one a bit more, just conceptually. The idea that they don't act human. I've actually seen some people speculate that there were no actual humans in that movie, like that they were all robots. I don't know about that, but because I think it kind of breaks the trickery going on in the film. But what I like about The Thing is very similar to that too. So in most movies about sci-fi, the aliens tend to be just humans. They've got the same interests and values and background and thinking and relationships as humans. Which I think is less interesting, which is what I like about The Thing, is like it's kind of inexplicable. It's like this weird, bipedal monster that all it cares about is survival. In fact, even the ship that crashes is probably, crashes because it took over whatever original alien was on that ship. And that's why it landed where it did. But also the movie Alien, right? So the Alien, that one, it's very much, pursuing its own thing. Like it's not doing it because it cares about its family or whatever. But it feels very alien. Or Annihilation had that too, where the alien, whatever that thing was that was in that bubble, it was definitely doing kind of its own thing. And so I always tend to prefer that. I always kind of roll my eyes a little bit when I see, the robots are just people. I'm like, well, that's not really all that interesting. I think The Matrix did an okay job with that too. So it was like, they were wearing human masks, but they had like their own thing that was going on with them. Not 100%, but it goes a little better in that regard. But yeah, that's one of the reasons I like The Thing, is because the alien feels very alien in it, which I appreciated. You get that similar thing with the aliens in the X-Files too, the black goo, because they're goo monsters. They're not really people shaped. They're single cell organisms or small organisms or whatever, living as a collective. But anyway, I think that concludes this morning's morning studies, and we'll talk to you all later.